I hope you can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon. I'm a PhD candidate in agronomy department from University of Florida. Today, I'm going to present my research entitled Simulating Alfalfa Harvest Accumulation using the crop grow perennial forest model. Oh, sorry, I didn't turn on my video. Okay. So let me introduce you with alfalfa. What is alfalfa? It's a perennial forest legume, and it's the most important forest legume crop in the world. But despite its global and national importance, alfalfa is not a common forest legume in southeastern part, particularly in Florida. It's because what you see in phenotype, for example, biomass, it's not only affected by G genotype or environmental effect, but also affected by G-Y interaction. And from the figure, you can see the biomass yield of different cultivars throughout the year or different time points is not same. It's because of G-Y interaction. And we have some barriers for alfalfa production here in Florida. What are those? Fall dormancy. What is fall dormancy? It's grow tall in fall, like the alfalfa, how much it's growing in grow tall in fall. So higher the growth level, that means they are about to less dormant or like non-dormant group. High temperature and humidity, it's a great problem here. And because of this problem, sometimes we see diseases. And also soil quality. Soil quality is not good here in Florida. I will show you later. And so breeding for adapted germplasm is very imperative, and exploring G-by can play important role on that. So how we explore G-by interaction using crop growth model. So first we need to know what is crop growth model. From this figure, you can see it's a little complex, but let me simplify this terminology. So it based upon several information. You have to understand your plants, soil and weather data. Also management data in DSAT, I will explain it later. And from that information, what we do or what crop growth model does, it produce information regarding yield, growth, and also how much fertilizer you need in your growth period, crop growth period, also water requirement, etc. So crop growth model can explore G-by interaction effect on growth and yield and evaluate potential adaptation to abiotic stresses. It can also help to understand G-by interaction to develop non-dormant alfalfa, which is our focus for the southeastern United States. So there are two works already done for different fall dormant group for alfalfa using crop group perennial forest model. One was done by Malik et al, and they were working with crop dormancy group 7, and another group was working with dormant group 3 and 4 in different environments. So modeling alfalfa yield with crop group perennial forest model offers great opportunities for us and its application in alfalfa breeding for non-dormant germplasm. So our overall objective was to adapt the crop group perennial forest model to predict alfalfa biomass yield in different fall dormant groups. So our specific objective is to evaluate the performance of regionally adapted cultivars for harvest accumulation in Florida. Our second specific objective was calibrate the crop group perennial forest model for biomass production for different fall dormant group. You can see we used fall dormant group 5, fall dormant group 6, 8, 9, and 10. 10 means they're about to non-dormant. So 5 cultivars we used in our experiment, and this is our field of, research field. It's like 30 minutes from here in Citra. So 5 cultivars we used, and with 2 seeding rates. So our experimental design was randomized complete block design with factorial treatment design. And other management was done based upon need, for example, fertilizing, weeding, irrigation, etc. Then we input all those data in this set. So from here, we collected data each month. We started collecting our data in April 2019. And we continued this data collection every month based on flowering percentage, 10% flowering for our locally adapted cultivars or lines. And we collected samples from there to dry and get the overall estimated production per hectare, kilo per hectare. That's our observed data. So for crop growth model, what we did. So crop growth model, we have to, we collected data from 0.1 meter square area from each plot before each harvest. So we collected that data before harvesting. We collected 10 stems from that particular area and counted total plants from that area. Then we separated leaves and stem. We took the weight from a stem and leaf, and we scanned the leaves to get the leaf area index. Later on, we dried this leaf and stem and took that sample weight to calculate weight per hectare, again, kilo per hectare. And later on, we input all those information in DSAT and to make this crop growth model to predict biomass yield in our research. So in DSAT, what I took other than the observed data, I took weather data from phone and soil profile data. We tested soil for some parameters. Crop management data, as I mentioned, we did fertilizing, weeding, and some other management. Treatment design, I mentioned 2 different seeding rates we use. So treatment design, we input there. Temporal file that includes the observed data, and Mo file, as you know, some of you know, we cut alfalfa every month and keep 4 inches above ground biomass. So we had to calculate the weight for that part. So in our data analysis part, mostly I process all the data in Excel spreadsheet, and then I analyze the data in R. Some examples are here: means, analysis of variance, and I also made some graph using R. And later on, I did calibration of soil, calibrate the soil and cultivar parameters and other simulation in DSAT. So in our results section, you can see the analysis of variance for harvest accumulation for 5 cultivars, and you can see the significant difference among 5 cultivars for yield or biomass production. And here, I'm gonna show you cumulative mean harvest accumulation across 10 harvests based on HSD test after ANOVA. So our x-axis represents 5 cultivars and y-axis represents cumulative harvest accumulation. And from this figure, you can see the non-dormant or very less dormant UF-AP15 is producing highest yield compared to other cultivars, and Bulldog 505 producing least amount of biomass yield compared to other cultivars. So the previous slide was across harvest, but this one is by harvest. You can see similar pattern if you can remember the first figure I showed you in the introduction part. You see their production is different in different time points. So they are not behaving same throughout the year. You can see from here our x-axis different harvests, and our y-axis represents a kilogram per hectare like biomass yield. And you can see again UF-AP15 non-dormant or about to non-dormant is producing highest among all cultivars. And here Cisco is producing the least amount of biomass, followed by Bulldog 505, this one. So what we saw from previous slides, that higher the dormant group, they are dormant group means when their dormancy level is less, they are producing high. And I will show you again from here. So this is the table. You can see what we got from GSAT. And this is the 5 alfalfa cultivars with solved 2 parameters from maximum leaf photosynthetic rate, and another one is a specific leaf area of cultivar under standard growth condition. And we did that calibration based on optimized our soil fertility factor here. I would like to explain a little bit about soil fertility factor. So the default soil fertility factor was 0.95, almost around 1. So the soil fertility factor range start from 0 to 1. When you go close to 1, that means their fertility level is high. When you go, our case 0.65, that means our soil fertility level is moderate. So based on the soil fertility factor, and we optimized 2 different traits. Here you can see our default standard default cultivar for this parameter, and this parameter was fixed 1.4 and 280 for this one. And here you can notice that this non-dormant AP15, their maximum leaf photosynthesis rate is highest, and also their specific leaf area is highest, which is directly correlated with biomass yield. So now you can relate with our dormancy and yield based on these 2 parameters. So higher the dormancy level, like they are less dormant or non-dormant, they are producing high leaf area, or their photosynthetic rate is high, and their biomass yield is also high. And here Bulldog 505, this is the least producing biomass yield, and here their leaf max and SLAV are also the least compared to other cultivars. So here is our another representation of observed harvest versus simulated harvest in 1-to-1 plot, and we have also observed versus simulated harvest per cultivar after calibrating soil file as well as cultivar 2 parameters. So you can see again, AP15 after calibrating all those parameters, they are producing highest compared to all other cultivars. In our x-axis, all cultivars are here, and you can see 2 seeding rates. In the beginning, I mentioned we have 2 seeding rates, so you can see 18 and 24. That means 18 pounds per acre and 24 pounds per acre. So that represent that. But generally, these are like same cultivar, but 2 seeding rates. That's why they are quite similar to each other. So here you can see the same scenario. AP15 is producing highest biomass, and Bulldog 505 is producing least biomass. So what's our conclusion and future direction from this research? We can say that crop growth perennial forest model was adapted to predict alfalfa harvest accumulation in different fall dormant group. And non-dormant cultivars, for example, AP15 produced greater harvest accumulation in Florida. And we will incorporate these agroclimatic and physiological parameters in our genomic selection model later on to predict biomass yield accurately, which will enable us to breed locally adapted alfalfa cultivar faster. I would like to thank my committee member, Dr. Kenwood, for guiding me for this project. Also, my PI, Dr. Esteban Dios, for guiding me and helping me throughout this process, and other lab members who helped me for data collection and so on. So thank you everybody for listening with patience. I'll be happy to answer any question if you have.
Well, thank you very much, Anju, for sharing your amazing work on alfalfa. And we have a couple of minutes for question and answers. And I have gotten a couple of questions here from our attendees. So the first question is, since you were talking a lot about those 5 cultivars in your entire research, can you share a little bit more about those 5 cultivars, like how you selected those cultivars, what was the reason behind selecting those, and things like that, please?
Okay, sure. Thank you, Swati. It's a great question. So as I mentioned, there are 2 research already published for this crop grow model as well as alfalfa. So they were working with different fall dormant group, and you can see Cisco 2 is here. It's already somebody worked on that, and that's from a part they are like working temperate zone, and we are not from temperate zone. So we included that one, how it performs here, and you saw that their performance is really poor. It's the second worst, I would say, among 5. And we have UFAP15. If you notice that it's not released yet, it's like our lines. So it is about to release, maybe this year, sometimes or following year. They are producing more. So they are like non-dormant kind of. So we are seeing that how dormant versus non-dormant performing here in Florida. So based on that criteria and published work, we chose those cultivars. Is that something answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. Just a follow-up question. So you were talking about UF15, which did really good in all of the harvest.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a breeding cultivar of Florida that was developed here in Florida by our UF faculties or something?
Yeah, they're like crossing and making selection, crossing, making selection. So it was initiated by, if I'm not wrong, Dr. Patricio Munoz in our department. Then he left, and my current PI, Dr. Esteban Dios, started from in between, and he's working on that continuously. And now we are here, and it's about to release.
There was another question about the alfalfa, specifically in Florida. So the attendees were interested to know if there are any specific alfalfa varieties that are adapted like to Florida situation here in North and South Florida specifically.
So you are okay. So you are talking about commercial cultivars.
Commercial, yeah.
Okay, so there are not many commercial cultivars available here in Florida. So you saw that Bulldog 805 that is adopted here, and you saw their performance is like second highest among these 5 cultivars. And UFAP15 it's not released yet, so I cannot say it's already commercial. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I think Josh also had a question about the research, but he couldn't type in the chat. So if he would like to go ahead and ask the question.
Yes, thank you, Swati. Anju, you were showing the one graph with the 10 different harvest times, and the one UF selection seemed to be grouping with the other cultivars except for at the last 3 harvests. Could you perhaps give us an insight and perhaps why it was following the crowd until the last 3 harvests?
Yeah, sure. That's a very interesting observation. I mean, and also a great question. So let me go back there and clarify that part. Is that one or introduction one? Which one you wanna, get the clarification? So if you see here, you say it's like a little bit crowded. If I am not wrong, you are asking about this graph. So this one is more about summertime here, as we started from April. If you see first one, so in springtime, their growth development and their biomass is, it's better compared to summertime. So here, if you see the summertime part, their growth development, everything is lower, as well as their harvest accumulation production is also lower. And they're kind of growing similar pattern here, because in summertime, their growth, their yield is not much high compared to fall time. I am mentioning again and again fall dormant, non-dormant. So that is our focus, to develop non-dormant cultivar. So here it jumps. It's because it's non-dormant. So it's just started growing tall in fall. And other cultivars is followed by Bulldog 805, that's commercial. So they asked me about this commercial cultivar. So you can see this is also showing different pattern, because in that time period in fall, they are suddenly jumping, kind of. I'm not sure whether I answer your question, but definitely you can ask me if I don't clarify that.
I think you answered it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anju. There is one more question in chat, and that is, can you see this research being able to extend to other forages aside from alfalfa?
Yes, there are several forest crop. They are adopting this crop growth model in this set. I believe there are some other platform as well. They are doing some crop growth model, but for my case, I'm using this set, which is developed by some professors from UF. And I saw there are some other perennial forests or forests, even annual, they're doing it. But for my case, it's perennial forest model specifically. And there are definitely some other forest crops. If you go to the site, you will see that it's a free software.
Well, thank you very much, Anju, for that awesome talk. And since Anju was the last student speaker for the symposium,